Hi guys, this is Joanne Godwin from Dawa Medical School Foundation, and I just finished my FMGE exam with a score of 216.
Wow, that's an awesome score, Doc. So let's start with your journey for this exam. So when did you actually really get into the full throttle for this exam?
That was in February once I entered my coaching.
Okay, great, great, great. So let's start with your weak subjects.
I'm so sorry, doc.
Okay, okay. So how did you handle internal medicine?
I saw a challenge in front of me and I faced it head on because that's all I could do.
Okay, great, great. And which are your strengths that you could really, really bank on in the paper?
Definitely surgery. Right from the
Okay,
beginning, surgery has been an interest of mine. So,
okay,
studying it didn't feel like studying. It seemed like reading something I love doing.
okay. Doc, I normally find that people tend to take a shortcut and they try to, solve only a few subjects. So, what is your take on this?
I would say don't do that because as much as you want to rely on your strength, you also need to learn to make your weaknesses your strength as well because you never know what's going to happen. You're not the one setting the paper.
Exactly. That is the main point. I think that's one of the important take-home messages. You don't know the paper set or psychology, so you
Exactly.
have to be ready for every eventuality.
Exactly.
Let's start from the very basic subject, Doctor Anatomy. How did you go about it, especially neuroanatomy, embryology?
Uh, Embryology again was a bit of a struggle, but I focused on a lot of videos because for me, I'm a visual learner. So videos really help me to set the foundation for my basics, for anatomy especially.
Great, great. So, PrepLadder videos were the ones that you were using.
Yes, yes.
Okay, fine, fine. And what about biochemistry and the cycles?
Biochemistry is so from the first year of college, I think biochemistry was my strength. So biochem came a little easy for me.
Okay, no, normally find people doing carbohydrate metabolism well, and then just deflating like a puncture tire. So, how did you handle that?
For me, I set it into different sections. So I think like anyone, I can't concentrate on one particular subject for the entire day. So for example, I would separate it over 3 days or 2 days. So I would do carbohydrates one day because that's the bulk of it, and then the next day lipids and a small portion of amino acids, and then another day for the rest.
Okay. And then coming to physiology, I mean, how much days I would say over the previous 4 months, I mean, how many days did you actually invest into physiology?
I think physio was one of my, let's say, the least amount of time that I spent on it because for
Okay.
me, since my basics for that were, I would say, strong, I am also came a little easier that way. So I was able to merge the two subjects in that way.
Okay, okay. And coming then to pathology, and let's go stepwise. In fact, first pathology. I mean, how did you handle that? How many days you invested into it?
First off, I really would love to thank Dr. Sparsh Gupta because he made it seem like your story that you're reading, and he really correlated it with all the subjects.
Okay,
So that way, I really enjoyed studying patho more than being forced to study it. I enjoyed what I was reading.
okay. And pharmacology?
That I think I really spread it over maybe a month even.
Okay, so you are acknowledging the fact that pharma is something which you were bad at, and then you spread it out so that you could gradually
Yes,
assimilate the.
yes,
Okay,
yes, exactly. Because like if for me it was if I read pharma one day and then the next day I go back to it, it seems like I don't remember much. But then revision, and that's how I was able to ace this
guys, that
pharma.
that has a very important message. You need to understand what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, because ultimately it just boils down to this very basic fact. You see, let's be very frank. We all have some subjects that we have a phobia of. There are some in which we can do plus minus, and there are some which are which we are good at. So there is no point of only working on the strengths, and there is absolutely no point of being having a phobia of a particular subjects and then end up somewhere in the middle. It is a overall holistic approach. I am saying that all 19 subjects you have to be good in, and then you can crack it like this young doctor has done in the very first go. And I think that first attempt is the best attempt per se. Doc, I heard a lot of bias about paper one being relatively simpler, and everybody was like, yo man, I'm gonna crack it, and paper two is like everybody's deflated. So what really happened?
For me, it was the total opposite, unfortunately.
Okay.
although it was relatively easy, paper one, I
Okay.
was unfortunately not well rested, so I was writing paper one like a zombie,
Okay.
maybe on my Z game. But
Okay.
for paper two, I came back on my A game. So
Okay.
that's how I think I was able to cope up. But
Okay.
definitely, I would say sleep before your exam.
Okay, so the maintenance of the circadian rhythms is important. Maybe like what you did was you were so addicted to working at night that you
Yes,
were groggy in the morning.
yes,
Guys,
very.
get your circadian rhythm right. She's a live example. She's very well admitting this fact that paper one she was feeling sleepy, and we really have to be very dicey of that situation. So you have to really ensure that you sleep properly. You get 6 hours of sleep at night so that you are the fresh in the morning exam. This MCA exam, till whatever it is before it is merged with the next exam, would be conducted in the time when you usually are groggy, and you don't have to do that. Very my sincere advice to all the listeners is that you have to be very optimally fresh in the morning hours so that your performance can definitely increase. So coming to paper 2, doc, I heard choices were longer and people were not able to complete. So how did you cope with that?
I focused, so my approach was to read it on the first go and go with my gut instinct. I've
Okay.
been advised by many doctors not to switch answers, to go with your gut, and that's exactly what I did. I gave it a few 30 to 45 seconds for each question, and I just went with my gut, no switching.
Okay, so that's very important, guys. The second most important message from this video is don't change your answers. I make it a big point. I have had a lot of people coming to me and saying that they flunked because of 1 mark, 2 mark, and that's simply because they switched answers. No switching is to be done, guys. It is your first answer, that the instinct that is giving you, that you have to basically follow. Doctor, how were you 1 month before the exam? Were you a bundle of nerves, or were you like, yo man, I'm gonna do it? So like, let's share what Dr. Joanne was, let me say, 1 month before the exam.
I wanted to get it over with.
Okay.
I was just frustrated with the
The torture.
monotony of
Okay.
like studying every day and the pressure that I put on myself and from outside. So 1 month before the exam, I just wanted to get it over with. I couldn't wait to just finish it.
So how many hours were you putting in every day, approx?
Approximately 12 to 13 hours a day. Again, what I would do was I towards the end I tried to get my circadian rhythm right, but that did not work for me, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but around 12 to 13 hours.
Okay. In those 13 hours, let's divide it further. How many hours for MCQs? How many hours for theory?
So the first thing I do when let's say I wake up by 6 or 7 a.m., the first thing I would do was review what I did the previous day. So that was an advice that I think you and a lot of doctors had given me, to always review what you did the previous day. So
So how many hours into that revision per day?
an hour or an hour and a half if I've studied a lot the
That's
previous day.
sufficient for
Yes.
whatever you've done yesterday. Okay.
Yes.
So let me say you got up at like 7 in the morning, and like till 8:39 or maybe till 10 o'clock you did what you had studied yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then what next, doc? Like,
And
is
then an advice that another doctor had given me was to always go to bed with a schedule. So I would follow my schedule and go according to my
okay, so whatever you had to study the next day was already written,
decided.
decided
Yes.
the day before only.
Yes.
Okay,
Definitely.
that's the third most important message of this video, guys, that you have to know what you're gonna study the next day, because otherwise, without planning, it is not possible. You need to execute a plan. So, doc, did you actually make it down? Was a timetable
Yes.
made out for you?
I hate the whole idea of like digital age. So I would always be writing it down and noting it down. And sometimes, I'd also give way to take extra time or take an extra nap if needed.
Okay, so to plan it out, because
Yes.
that is very
Yes.
important. What topics are to be read and what are not to be read. Okay, doc. So how many hours actually into now? Like, let me say we are 10 o'clock in the morning. From 10 o'clock to what time would you be reading the topics planned for the day, proxy?
Approximately 10 to maybe 1 or 2 o'clock, and then I
Okay.
take a 1 hour lunch break for a
Okay.
quick nap and
Okay.
wash my face and stuff. And
Right.
then 3 o'clock again it starts, and I would take another break around 5:30 for half an hour for my tea and just to change things up a bit, and then again get back to it by 6 to 8 or 9, and then dinner for half an hour, and then back until
Okay,
12.
so actually you were doing like only half an hour time for any
Yes.
kind of snacks or anything that
Yes.
you're having. So guys, that's again something that you need to realize, that we go out for lunch, we start chit chatting with our friends, and then you know no time will fly, and then you are scrolling through your Facebook account, scrolling, and the time would just fly out, and you would really not realize how much time have you wasted. So please use the time to sleep. Where whatever time you get, spare time you get, don't waste it on social media and stuff like that. Try to sleep properly, try to get up fresh, and planning is, I think, the most important part. So doc, let's come to the end of the day. Like from your discussion, the impression is you revise in the morning, then you do theory, and then you do MCQs at the later
Yes.
part of the day. Okay, so is it not that the mind will not be fresh? I mean, that's my query from your my side to you. Would that be that the MCQ performance would be affected because you have already put 8 hours into churning data, or would it be like you are more focused towards MCQs? Which way is it?
I feel like I was more focused because
Okay,
I would do MCQs, a mixture. So some of what I did from the previous day and fresh MCQs from the topics I studied
okay,
for that day.
okay.
So it was like a review, and it helped me go to sleep a little confident.
How many MCQs per hour do you think is a decent idea that you are bang on track? I mean, with explanation I'm talking about. How much is
With
possible?
explanation, I would say 80, maybe 80 to 100, depending on your own speed. But for
Okay.
me, initially I was going maybe 60 to 80, and then towards the end I picked up speed and I was
Okay,
going
so
around
that is like
100.
1 minute per MCQ
Yes.
that you are
Yes.
investing. Right, right. But explanation would obviously take some extra time for that.
Explanation would take extra time, but I would not focus on like for questions that I know and I'm very confident in. I
Okay,
wouldn't waste my time reading an explanation. I
okay.
would rather, for questions that made me think or questions that I got wrong, for those questions I would read the explanation.
Okay, so that's another strategy which I have found a lot of people using very effectively. That if you know an answer to a particular question, you don't need to waste your time going to an explanation and turning pages and going ahead with it. But if there's a question which you thought answer was A, turned out to be B, that is the one that you need to focus on. Don't focus on rare facts, guys. A lot of time I find people trying to memorize only rare things. The bottom line is rare things. There are so many, you just can't remember them. But the question that you thought A is an answer and the answer turned out to be C, which we simply call a silly mistake, right?
Yes.
That is the one which is a big killer, and that is what crashes the scores. That is what crashes the ranks. And the only advice to you guys is that you need to keep things simple, scheduling, and at the same time trying to do questions which you think, just zapped your mind out. Those are the ones which basically need to be focused on. So we go in a little more fast forward mode now. 1 week before the exam, what were you doing, especially when it comes to like you have 1 week, 19 subjects. So how did you cope up with the pressure, or what did you actually do?
The week before the exam, I was concentrating more on MCQs. I was giving maybe half my day towards MCQs, and I had a plan for 2 weeks before my exam. So, towards the end, I kept the subjects that I know I'm strong with so that it wouldn't take me much time. But the subjects that I know I need some time to review, I did that earlier. And then, but mostly I gave half my day to MCQs.
Okay, so that's very important that you continue doing MCQs even the last week also. So because that becomes a habit for you, that your mind keeps on racing, trying to evaluate options, and that is what is required, guys. You just need to learn exclusion skills and a regular capacity to be able to exert your mind on a continual basis. So one day before the exam, what did you actually do? Dump everything and said to hell with everything?
I think until maybe 5 p.m. I
Okay.
was trying to review, but it was not an actual review because
Mhm.
I was too nervous.
Okay.
And then by 6 or 7, I said, I'm done. I cannot take in any more
that
information. And I went
that
to
that is
bed.
what I have seen people doing, and I think that's the right thing, guys. Don't try to put too much of pressure on the last 1 day or 2 days. Nothing is going to work out of that. And a lot of people I have seen, they put too much of pressure on the last 2 days on their preparation. They start trying to read the notes once again, and if you have this big a bunch of notes, it's not practically possible. So whatever pressure you have to take is now. It is now or never. It is pressure right now that you have to take right from the word go, guys. It's 12 hours of daily study. There's no point of trying to build up pressure in the last 1 month. It's not gonna work. Let's be very, very frank. It's daily practice. It's at least 4 to I assure you the fact all these guys who are sitting here with me have scored very, very good marks. You see, but I've seen average people getting very decent scores simply because of dedicated approach. And I think that is what is finally required for this exam. And many, many congratulations, doctor. And thanks
Thank
for
you.
sparing time for coming over and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.